tested. The new 11-inch MacBook Air defies classification. Its svelte chassis belies a competent notebook. While it falls short of current desktop replacement levels, it was able to handle much heavier workloads than a netbook could, thanks to its 1.4 GHz Core 2 Duo processor. Don't let the low clock speed fool you. Unlike Atom-powered netbooks, the ultra-low voltage CPU in this notebook is surprisingly capable. When paired with responsive solid-state storage, you have a laptop that resumes from sleep at near iPad speed, but can play Flash video and run Photoshop. Building good, thin and light laptops is an exercise in compromise. Battery life versus CPU performance, weight versus battery life, screen size versus portability. A good ultra-portable will ride that seesaw perfectly. The new MacBook Air delivers impressive performance in light workloads. In real-world web browsing, word processing, and video playback, it was indistinguishable from a more capable 13-inch 2.53 GHz MacBook Pro. At least, until you pick up the machine. At 0.7 inches thick and 2 pounds 5 ounces, with a gorgeous 11-inch 1366 by 768 screen, the MacBook Air is barely larger than the full-size chiclet keyboard that Apple's been using on unibody Macs. When paired with the full-size trackpad, the keyboard means that you don't need to make any input sacrifices to use a laptop so light you won't notice that it's in your bag. The higher pixel density and thin display excuse the fact that Apple is shipping a crappy display in the Air. Limited off-axis viewing means this isn't an IPS panel, but Apple hasn't said what type of panel is being used. Much of the rest of my testing was designed to find the new MacBook Air's limits. First, I turned to gaming, loading Plants vs. Zombies, StarCraft 2, and Torchlight on the Air. Because none of these games include benchmarks, I wasn't able to measure precise frame rates, but all 3 games were playable at default settings. And even though I'd play StarCraft single player on the Air, I wouldn't want to tackle multiplayer. While native OS X games ran fine, you won't have any luck running emulated Windows versions of games, nor will first-person shooters run at playable frame rates. Next, I fired up iLife, testing both the time it took Garageband to mix and normalize an hour-long podcast, as well as the time it took iMovie to render a 12-minute video using the High preset. Both apps are usable for light editing, although I think the Air could benefit from more RAM, a $100 option that requires building to order because memory isn't upgradable. Renders did take a while though. 36 minutes 32 seconds on the Air versus 24 minutes 48 seconds for the 13-inch MacBook Pro. Garageband took about twice as long on the Air as it did on the MacBook Pro. 38 minutes 2 seconds on the Air versus 19 minutes 58 seconds for the MacBook Pro. The gap was thinner in our Photoshop script. The Air took 7 minutes and 32 seconds, the MacBook Pro 5 minutes flat. The upshot is simple. While the Air will work in a pinch, I wouldn't recommend it for content creators. So, is the MacBook Air a netbook killer, an iPad killer, or just another laptop that sacrifices performance for portability? At some point, the Air versus iPad debate becomes almost metaphysical. Would you rather have an underpowered device running a more capable desktop operating system, or an underpowered device running an OS that's designed for the hardware strengths and weaknesses? And while part of me is offended by the netbook apologist mantra, if you only use your computer to browse the web and check email, there are undoubtedly millions of people who do only use their computers to browse the web and check email. At the end of the day, this is a perfectly acceptable primary computer for those folks. Likewise, if your laptop is a secondary computer that you only use on the road, this is an awesome laptop for you. In fact, with 5 hours of battery life, tested using a DVD rip on disk, in a sub 2.5 pound body, this is a saucy laptop. If you're going to buy one of these, definitely spring for the full 4 GB of RAM, since it isn't upgradable at all. And consider buying as much storage as you can afford. The 64 GB default storage on the 11-inch model felt constricted after just a week. Yes, at $1,000 this new MacBook Air includes the dreaded Apple tax, but this time it's worth paying for. For Tested, I'm Will Smith. Thanks for watching.